Oh, that's lovely. Okay, can you see me? Yes, you can. Can you see the alternator? Yes, you can. That's a good start. Okay, at this point, we're going to tighten it down. Where is my socket? There it is. Okay, I'm going to change sockets. Just for reference, the socket to remove the regulator and brush holder is a 1/4 inch socket. Obviously, it's also 1/4 drive, too, if you want a small socket. And the socket on the outside is an 8 millimeter or a 5/16. This one's a little loose, so it's going to be a 5/16. I'm going to tighten these down. And you get the point here. Tighten this down. Tighten this down. Yeah, I know, so boring. But work usually is. Oh boy, what is that racket outside? Alright, tighten this third one down. I'm not going to bore you with tightening down these bolts, but you're not going to want to kill them to the point where you're going to crack the housing by putting too much force on it or by stripping the housing. Because remember, steel bolts and aluminum housing, the steel bolt will win. So, anyways, tighten these down enough so I can actually put this thing on the tester and show you that my disassembly and repair actually works 100%. At least I have some confidence in my life. Not supposed to say that out loud, but whatever. Okay, one bolt is tight. Let's see, the other one, turn, tight. This one's good. Now, most alternators, you can follow this same style disassembly and rebuild because most alternators are the same, consisting of a diode trio, a regulator, a brush holder, brushes, and some setup like that. But I do actually have an alternator in my possession that is a brushless alternator. I should take a video on that, but that alternator is very heavy and I don't feel like doing that right now. Okay, now that this is all tightened and back together, I'm going to take a good look here. Case has been reassembled. Back here is actually the regulator. You can see it through these holes, and the diode trio heatsink here. There's your output to your battery, and here is your regulator connection from the voltage. From the electrical system in the truck. Wow, I can really speak today. Alright, now that this is all assembled, you're going to take this wire, lift it out. Click, click. Brushes have receded. Save this wire. They're always a good little thing to have. Like I was saying, save the little wire because they're always good for this application. Now that the alternator's back together, we're going to do one final check. Oh, that's the screwdriver. I need the nut driver. Here's the nut driver. We're going to do one final check and make sure. Let me set you down again. Sorry. There, I think you can see. I would think so. Can you see my hand? I'm sure you can now that I was in totally full view of that camera. Alright, tighten these down. And, oop, that one was a little loose. Alright, now I'm going to flip this over. Reinstall your spacer. Set all this aside. Install the fan. Make sure it seats properly. You can paint it if you'd like. I was bored when disassembling the alternator, so I did this basically for the hell of it. Now that the fan's back on, you're going to take your pulley, put the pulley on, put the washer on, and then put the nut on. Now you cannot use an impact gun to reassemble these things. Well, I suppose you could, but I wouldn't want to damage the bearings. You can tighten this by hand, but at some point the armature shaft is going to start turning like it is now, but the fan and pulley will not because they are not tight. So at this point I use an Allen bit that fits inside here on my ratchet. And now the key is you have to put the ratchet in the remove, or in the case of my snap-on, the off position when you're rotating this, because what you're doing is you're rotating the armature, not the fan and pulley. So you put this in the off position and you put a big wrench like... Where's the big wrench? Big wrench, big wrench, big wrench. Where, oh where is the big wrench? Those things are nice and loud. They're a lot of fun to annoy the neighbors with. Oh, I'm such a bad neighbor. Big wrench, big wrench. Ah, there she is. You can't see this. This is nice and bright white. Oh, I hate this Canon camera. Don't buy a Canon camera. They suck. Okay, big wrench right here. There's my stupid dog outside making a mess of the yard as usual. Okay, set this down. You're going to take the big wrench, slip it over, and turn. There you go. Reassembled and ready for testing. Alright, now I will head over to the test bench and show you how the test boys and girls, here is my filthy, dirty test bench. You can see there's a 28 MT starter, very kind of loosely strapped in here. Whole bunch of junk. The way this tester works is it acts almost like the electrical system in the vehicle to energize the alternator and put a load on it. It's a very light load, only about 6 to 8 amps with this tester. I'm actually debating building something a little stronger to put more of a load on it, so it almost, not so it stalls the alternator, but enough so it actually puts the alternator through its paces. Anyways, alright, now I'm going to plug this thing in here. There's a friggin' mess over here too. This whole garage is a damn mess, as you can see. Nothing but mess. Messy, messy junk. Okay, we don't need that. Plug the alternator tester in. Now let's hope this thing doesn't trip the breaker. It likes to do that, because the breaker here is damaged from a lightning strike on the house about a year ago, and I've never gotten around to replacing it yet. Alright, so you're going to slide the alternator onto this pin down here through the through hole, and then you're going to tighten this up here. Spin this down. You usually want that clamp centered as close to that steel shim in the center as possible, but just tighten it down just enough, like so, and then make sure the alternator can spin freely without hitting any of this base. You're going to lean this forward. As you can see, here's the belt. Lean this forward, pull back. As you can see, it's actually slightly crooked, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it down a little more. I have to set you down here. Let's see, loosen that up a bit. Take the tension off and tighten down some more. There. Now, we are all hooked up and ready to go. Take the electrical harness. This big mess of wires here. It's not as intimidating as it looks because the yellow and green wires are not used. Here's the plug. This plug will attach to the same location of your alternator that the electrical harness in the truck attaches to. And then you just have your ground clamp, which can be clamped either to the alternator itself or to the case, or rather the holder. Either or. I've done it to both and it works just fine. And then you take your positive lead, which is here. Make sure it's got a nice good hold on the positive output of the alternator. And then you want to make sure your settings are correct. Okay, alternator. And then you just want to make sure that this is the same, 12 volt or 6 volt system. That is 6 volt, that is 12 volt. Follow the line over to some BS, and you're going to choose what kind of alternator regulator you have. All others or Delco internal. This is a very old tester, so you're going to do Delco internal, and you're going to spin up the alternator. This will spin it in either counterclockwise or clockwise direction. Some it matters, like say a generator, it matters what direction it's spinning in more so than an alternator. But in the case of this, we are going to spin it clockwise. So we press clockwise. The tester spins up. As you can see, it's running and vibrating like hell. Okay, Delco internal, no fuses popped. Now we press apply load test volt. As you'll see, the load indicator light comes on, and the meter comes up to show you the voltage. If you look closely, you can see this alternator is putting out about 14.5 volts. You let it off, and the gauge drops down. You engage it, and here's proof that there's a load on the alternator. You'll watch how fast, when I shut the motor off, how fast it spins down. You can see how fast that stops, as opposed to no load on the alternator. The a nice slow coast down. So this alternator rebuild was a success. Next, I will show you how to rebuild a starter. Unfortunately, I cannot test the starter that is buried down there in the corner because it is damaged. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll pull apart this starter down here or that one. Gear reduction starters can be a pain because of the gear reduction unit in them. And the last time I disassembled one of those, there's O-ring seals in there and such that I really don't want to replace just out of curiosity's sake. So this starter will not be disassembled because it is in pretty much perfect condition.